Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to the Leicestershire Safer Communities Strategy Board. I don't plan on going around for introduction due to time pressures, but obviously if there are new people here that have not been before, they just want to introduce themselves before they speak, that would be great. We'll crack on. So we'll do introductions first, but I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Councillor Deborah Taylor, lead member for Children, Families and Community Safety at the County Council and chair of this meeting. So we'll move on to item 2, the minutes of the previous meeting. Is anyone happy with them, that are an accurate representation of the meeting that we had? Yeah, is everyone happy with those?
I'll move them, Debbie.
Thank you. On to item 3, matters arising. I didn't pick anything up. Has anyone else got any matters arising from the minutes? No? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is the action log. I think most of the issues on the action log are actually on the agenda today. So let me just scroll through. So item 2 is on the agenda today. Item 3, this was brought up before about communications that we can send out to the public, but Ewan's not received anything. So I don't know if anyone's got any ideas that they want to send in to, because obviously the feeling was quite strong at one of the previous meetings, but no one's actually sent anything in. So if anyone's got anything that they would like, that they think is worth sending out to the public, can you make sure that you send them to Ewan and we can start getting some proactive communications out there? So that would be great if someone can do that. And then 5's on the agenda today as well. Is there anything else that anyone wants to raise from the log? Okay, on to item 5, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from anyone with items on the agenda? Okay, thank you. No one's indicating. Okay, so we'll move on to item 6 with the LSCSB board training programme, and Rick, you're taking us through this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a very short report that's been circulated. It formalises a request that was made at the last board. In a nutshell, a request was made to arrange a programme of training inputs for board members. Why was that? Well, it was to increase knowledge and understanding amongst the board members and to allow for more in-depth discussion. How will the training be given? The proposed format is to utilise distance learning, Microsoft Teams, in other words, to cut down the travel and encourage attendance. Inputs are expected to be relatively short, 1 to 2 hours, but obviously that depends on the subject matter and the advice from those delivering the inputs. Areas to be covered. We've asked board members to feedback regarding areas they would like to see covered, and we've had some good suggestions come through, and those will be in the pipelines. We've already arranged a date in the diary for ASB training, which is 9:30 to 11 on Tuesday the 26th of October. That was the most popular date out of the 2 that were on offer. We will be recording that session, so members will be able to view the training, and hopefully if it's a success we can always repeat it at a later date. There's various other subject areas that as I've said, that are in the pipeline. The ask is that it's been done, and on an ongoing basis, feedback regarding the format and quality of the programme.
Thanks, Rick. You're breaking up a bit. I think we got the gist of what you're saying, that the first training's booked for the 26th of October. I can't make that because I'm at County Hall that day, but like you say, it's going to be recorded. But that gets sent out to all members for them to view at their own leisure. Is that the plan?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay.
Technical issues permitting.
Yeah, as always. Yeah, but obviously if any other members have got ideas that they would like to cover, then obviously send them in to you and then we can look at them. But I think this should be a really good start to try and just get us up trained a bit more going forward. Malaise. You're muted if you're speaking. Mr. Graham, you've got your hand up, but you're muted.
Sorry, I suddenly realised I should have been talking later on the agenda about future meetings when we got the 18th of March and the 17th of March done. But
Right,
it was a mistake. Sorry.
okay, no problem. Anyone else about the training programme? Any other input from anyone? Okay, fingers crossed the training goes well, and really welcome some feedback on, like you say, the format and how it's working, because we want this to be beneficial for the group. Les.
Thanks, Zoe. I'm getting to sound like a bit of a stuck record on this one. But if Rick's sorting out the training, I believe it's now publicly available. There is a BBC docudrama called Doing Money, which is about sex trafficking in Rotherham. I would continue to bang the drum. It is the most intriguing, informative, and quite disturbing 90-minute docudrama I've ever watched. And on the nature of what we do collectively, when you're looking at your training program, Rick, can you just have a look at that as an option? So it's one of those that says, if you don't think this is happening on your street, think again. So can I leave that one with you, Rick?
Okay, thanks, Les. And I suppose adding to that, we could look at CSE and CCE as a subject for training. So maybe we incorporate that. And I think the link was found, wasn't it, at the last Police and Crime Commission?
Yeah, no, it's publicly available now, Deb. So yeah.
Yeah, so
thank you.
Maybe some training around CCE and CSE would be a good subject to follow on in the pipeline. Okay, thanks for that, Liz. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is the hate crime strategy update. I think Anita's taking us through that. Is she on here? Oh, yes, she is. I can see you. Over to you, Anita.
Thanks, Councillor. Just to really say that this report presents the amended LLR strategy statement in Appendix A and the delivery plan that's in Appendix B. This was developed jointly through our partners, basically to bring consistency for victims in partnership approach that we take around tackling hate across LLR. In terms of notable developments, as members will know, previously it was an officer-led group, and it struggled at times in terms of influence about change effectively. And due to that and the governance side that needed to be stronger, I think the move forward is, I think, excellent in that sense. So we recently formed, well, the police actually took the lead, ACC Julia Debenham. So she is chairing the hate strategic group, and we've met a number of times for the work that we've presenting here today. And there is a group that's been tasked by Julia called a working group, which is going to look at key areas that are LLR-wide interest, for example, victim perspective, performance and training. So that will be brought together, and we would welcome representation from community safety teams across our partners, district and boroughs, and an email to that effect has been sent out in terms of that, and a date will be set shortly. So the key really is moving forward is that accountability and monitoring. We want to really embed that so that that is something that is looked at the SOG meeting, at this board, and then SPB in terms of how effectively we support victims and about the way we raise awareness. So key issues really in terms of the partnership. So what we kind of suggest and recommend is all partners adopt the LLR hate strategy statement. And one of the focuses that CSPs lead on the work to deliver the delivery plans and outcomes at a locality. And I'd like to stress here that there's no assumption that the CSP should adopt the delivery plan in its current format, but rather CSPs assess what will work best within their own localities. And this may be to incorporate hate priorities into existing delivery plans, because we do acknowledge that different teams within the different borough partners, have different levels of capacity. And that really is item 8 as well in the covering report. It's about local intelligence, local data, driving local needs and priorities. And I think that's what was missing previously. So really, in a nutshell, the board is asked to agree the amended strategy statement and agree an approach to adopt the delivery plan within each of their CSPs. If there's any questions, I'll definitely try and answer what I can.
Thanks, Anita. Now I read the report and really welcome the move to sort of more locality-based stuff, because that's where it's dealt with. I mean, I saw all the data packs that get sent out to the CSPs, and I think hate crime went up in absolutely every area across LLR. So it's a real issue that we need to tackle and obviously support the victims, don't we? So has anyone got any comments on this? Julie?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of quick queries. In terms of the hate strategic group, is there a district rep on the hate strategic group? And if so, who is it?
Yes, at the moment, we've got, I think, Miriam from Northwest and Rachel Burgess from Hinckley. However, if there is expressions of interest on the hate strategic group, please come forward.
Okay, and so, sorry, Chair, I've got a second question. Obviously, in terms of from a CSP perspective, obviously hate's embedded, and the proposal from Charm will be that we'd embed it into our action plan. The other question is that previously there was like a county-wide action plan. Is there planned to be a county-wide action plan picking up LLR actions and then locality plans below that?
So, the 3 areas that I mentioned, victim perspective, performance and the training, those are seen as broad LLR kind of issues that will cut across all partners. So the aim is that the sort of police are going to do some number crunching and some information collecting with victim first. And in terms of training, we're going to look at the target audience, and that offer in terms of the working group has been offered out to all partners across our district and boroughs. I'm yet to wait a response back from Charnwood, Julie, in terms of who would like to be on the working group. So the working group is separate to because that's going to be the tactical group. So yes, there will be a corporate element, but really move going forward is that we all take accountability for our kind of local areas.
Thank you. Malaise.
Thank you. Yes, no, I'm not muted. Just to say, I've always had difficulty with hate crime because of the classifications. You can complain about someone and it's a complaint. You only have to mention in passing the name of a group or a nationality or something, and it immediately turns into a hate crime. And it's not a hate crime, it's reporting of an incident. And I don't know if that's changed since I was last on the CSP, which was over 3 years ago, really. But that very much was the problem we found at the time. But nobody wants a hate crime, and it shouldn't be tolerated. But I find that a lot are reported which are not hate, they're just that you actually identify a section of society, and it can immediately be turned into something. Thank you.
I think Malaise as well. I'll let Anita come in, but what I first struggled with, the difference between a hate crime and a hate incident, and I think they're clearly different things. So I think you need to be clear about what's a hate incident and what's a hate crime. But I'll let Anita come back.
So in the strategy statement, there is an attempt in 2.4 to give you an indication of how the police and the partners would look at this. It's quite simple, really. It has to be investigated. Usually a hate incident is like what Councillor Melissa said, is, it can be incidents that are reported. A crime will be investigated solely by the police. So there's the difference. So not all incidents are crimes. And this word hate crime is bandied very loosely, and I often correct partners and local organisations that you can't just say hate crime because there are incidents within it. So that's what we do in the work that we do in terms of raising awareness. I'm constantly using hate incidents because that's what we do and what we monitor against and what we might work against in terms of our local sort of ASB teams and the community safety role. any criminal element, that is subject to the police.
Thank you.
Okay, Rachel.
Thank you. Anita, I just wondered if you'd got health representation on your strategic group, and if so, who that was.
Yeah, that's apologies if I get the first name wrong, but I do know the second name. I think is it Dean Chesford?
Oh, Dean Chesford, yeah. So Dean from Leicester Partnership Trust. Yeah,
so he has, well, he did come to the initial first two hate strategic group meetings, but yes, we would like representation more consistently from the health side. So if that could be followed up from your end, that would be great.
I'll have a chat with Dean. I'll have a chat within the CCG just to see who we think might be best representing.
Leon Herbert was his predecessor, so I would think that it does fall to Dean, but yes, I'll leave that to you to decide.
But I guess it's about ensuring representation for the whole health community. And I'm not sure in terms of Dean's role, because obviously he works for and with Leicester Partnership Trust, which is obviously just one element of health. So I'll pick that up. I'll take that as an action.
Actually, can I just come in there quickly, Councillor, because something else has been raised through the work around domestic abuse, and one of the health colleagues in that meeting did say that within health, obviously you've got so many different arms and it's quite a complicated institution, and you cannot have one person representing for the whole of NHS. So I think equally for hate, I think there will need to be appropriate representation from the different structures from within the NHS. If that could be looked at, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm in the position to be able to take a focus. I link in with a lot of health colleagues. So, yeah, we'll definitely pick that up on the back of this. Thanks, Anita.
Thanks, Rachel. Is there any other questions for this, for Anita? Okay, thank you very much. So the recommendations are on page 16, that we agree the amended LLR strategy statement for tackling hate, Appendix A, and agree an approach to adopt the delivery plan within each CSP on Appendix B. Are we all happy with those recommendations?
Yes, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Thanks, Anita. Okay, on to item 8, which is the warning zone, and we've got Elaine Stevenson with us, the CEO from Warning Zone. So welcome, Elaine, if you'd like to take us through your report.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I am a newbie, so I don't know all of the discourse and etiquette of meetings like this, so please do forgive me. So I'm the CEO of Warning Zone. I joined in January 2020, inherited an amazing organisation. I know that some of you already know about Warning Zone, may have already been there. Some of you might not have. I did like an overview. Now, I don't know if you read it or not before the meeting. I know some of you will, some of you might not have. So the reason that I'm here is that I wanted to introduce Warning Zone as an organisation that might be able to work more sort of better in partnership with you know, the sort of the wider overall sort of board, because we work really closely with the police, with the fire and rescue service, and specific people with the Violence Reduction Network. Grace and Gurjit have been amazing, but I have found that it's sort of, you know, depends on the individuals and the individual interest, and sort of if they get what we do, and I think what most people do. Because we do two things basically. One is we have a big centre in Frog Island where year 6, 10 and 11-year-olds come. They come for a whole day. And 80% of all the primary schools in Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland come to us. And then we have like an interactive experience going through different zones, lifelike scenarios, exploring risks and dangers and choices that the 10 and 11-year-olds make, sort of when they're sort of transitioning from going to primary school to secondary school, and also all these sort of underlying issues that go along with that. So as I've sort of said in my report, we've got all the actual physical dangers and risks that they will be making choices about, such as, well, there'll be fire in the home. And we've had cases recently where young people have been in a fire at home and they've said, I remembered what I learned at Warning Zone, and therefore, you know, a disaster has been averted, and they've called the police and they've told their family what to do. sorry, I digress. And then, so, yeah, we have other zones like railway safety and which also now people are doing TikToks and live streaming of dangerous behaviour, including on railways. So it's sort of like changing and updating all the time, and that's really why I thought it would be interesting to be part of this board. Then also there's antisocial behaviour, alcohol. We have a zone which is set in a park and a graveyard. We're getting a lot of disclosures of ACEs there, and before lockdown that was sort of increasing. Road safety, so all the aspects of road safety, arson, all those kind of sort of so we have 8 zones for all those different physical dangers and risks. But also going through that, we talk about responsibility in terms of criminal responsibility. So at the age of 10 you can get a record, and the impact of that, so what your choices are going to have sort of a longer term impact on. We talk about the impact on other people of those choices, on people who are other people who are involved, on the emergency services, then also on your friends, etc. And they also talk about and include the bystander approach, talking to a trusted adult, and if they're not available, then identifying who your trusted adult is. If they're not, who else? The teachers, which ones can you talk to for what? Then what if you're not getting the right response or the right help? And then bringing in fearless if there's something that's happening that you needs to be anonymous. So we're trying to sort of get the whole sort of remit of making children aware of the risks and choices that they make, the consequences of those, not feeling that it's their fault if something goes wrong, the confidence to talk to trusted adults and know where to go if things do go wrong, and sort of deciding what kind of people they want to be, and also knowing that it's never too late to get out of a situation. So they might be on the periphery of criminal engagement or entrenched, but at this age it's then sort of trying to get them to think about what they can actually do. We also have a programme for secondary schools where we go out to secondary schools with a massive roadshow mobile show unit, and we work with Prevent on this as well. So this is all about online exploitation, online hate and online radicalisation, and we're looking also at the gender aspect of that, and our programme manager for that, Craig, he's an expert on not only on youth work but also on the dark web, what happens, how people get entrenched. So when they start in a vulnerable situation, then what happens, the rabbit holes, etc. And he's also given sort of workshops and seminars to Prevent professionals on incels 2 years ago, and then he's going to do another one after the Plymouth shooting. Usually we sort of work with engage annually with about 20,000 children and young people each year. During lockdown, it was less than that. Obviously, we had people come in when we could, and we went to schools when we could. But then also we wanted to do sort of engage with Year 6 teachers and their classes when they couldn't come. So we developed some modules that they could use in class. Now they couldn't replicate a visit or be instead of a visit. So we wanted to make them so that they could be used when people came back as well, so that they could complement a visit. So we've done some also about the themes that go through what we do, sort of our specific modules, and then using examples sort of from the issues that we explore in the zones. We also have an e-safety zone at Warning Zone. So that's looking at all of the different aspects of online safety. And so we look at online grooming, making sure that you're not opening yourself up for data and images going to people who you don't know, online coercion, online cyberbullying, and then getting into hate, and then what makes you vulnerable and how you react to that. Images, sharing images, and what you're comfortable with, and what the sort of the new norms that are creeping in, and for girls it's okay to say no and they don't have to compete. About it doesn't matter about how many likes you get, about it's not reality, etc. We start trying sort of talk about sort of scenarios, and then all the different aspects of the World Wide Web, and we find out where they are and what they're using, what apps they're using, what games they're using, and their engagement at the time. So I mean, our whole zones, all the different games and all the different ways we interactively engage with them, we don't actually use IT because that goes out of date. We use ways that then we can integrate what they've said that they do and how they do it. So yeah, and so we've also had a few cases referred to us by the children and adults units, and also by the community police. So, I mean, really, what I think that our sort of the way we can work together is this, is that if there are issues on community safety that we need to stay current and relevant on, then, you know, we can use what we do to be able to make sure those messages are consistent and updated, and then also we can and we can sort of sorry, I was just looking at Carl's message, and then we can provide a platform if there are things that you think that we can do for 10 and 11-year-olds, and then as we go out to secondary schools. Now, obviously, you all have your relationships with schools, but it's just that when schools come to warning zone, they interact in a different way and they have a different experience. And we're having all of our feedback. I just had some feedback this morning of how the children are still talking about the visit, and the parents are emailing the school saying they won't be quiet about the visit and they really enjoyed it. So it does have a massive impact, and all of our evaluation forms, 99.9% score 5 out of 5 for all criteria, including objectives, etc. It's just that we cannot at the moment. We're looking at ways to do more longitudinal research and impact. So I think, have I explained enough so far? And anybody got any questions?
Yeah, there's a few hands up. Just from me first, all I wrote in my notes when I was reading this was brilliant, because I mean, I think the work there is just amazing. I've been quite a few years ago actually, so I'd be really keen to when we're safe to do so, to come back and have another visit about how you're doing. Just a couple of things, just with you going forward, about some of the things that you're working towards. I suppose one for me is about the domestic violence and healthy relationships. Is that covered within some of your work that you do there? Because I suppose that's really come to the highlight, hasn't it, a lot more during the lockdowns, about healthy relationships. So is that included in part of your work that you do there?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about trusted adults, we talk about, we get them to think about who their trusted adult is. But then we don't actually do more sort of in-depth work on healthy relationships. But we are working at the moment with Leicester Rape Crisis Centre, looking at sort of peer-to-peer, more healthy relationships. That what they're doing for 13-year-olds in terms of peer-to-peer sexual harassment, we're looking at how we can make that what's appropriate to take out for that, to prepare for that for 10 and 11-year-olds. I mean, also in terms of healthy relationships, when we're talking about cyberbullying, when we're talking about your vulnerability, when situations where you feel vulnerable and you want to respond or retaliate, why that happens and what the best choices are. And then also we talk a lot about being a good friend and the bystander approach, and the difference between sort of snitching on someone and helping them to make sure that they don't sort of spiral into a really just a difficult situation. So that's where we stand at the moment.
So is that the bystander work? Is that the work you're doing with the Violence Reduction Network, the programme that they've got going on in schools? Is that where you're joining up with the violence reduction.
Yeah, we're sort of like taking some of that and integrating that all the time. So when we go through all the zones and when we go through all of the sort of the online stuff, we're sort of saying, so if this happened to a friend, what would you do? And what would you want your friends to do?
Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
We've also got a whole module on, you know, for using in classroom on, you know, being a good friend. But yeah, we'd love to work more closely on the sort of mentoring, you know, on that mentoring program.
Yeah, that's a really good program. I suppose for us and probably for the CSPs as well is to feed into what they're hearing on the ground, isn't it? Feeding into you for you to tweak your work. But I'd be really interested to come again, also to see the roadshow, because I've not actually seen that for the older ones. So if there's an opportunity for that, I'd be really keen, and maybe other members will be as well. But no, really good for the work that you're doing. I think all the children in LLR remember going to Warning Zone in their school year. So yeah, I'll go through the questions. So Les first.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Elaine. I've got a question here from one of my lead officers, and so I'm at Blaby District Council, and it says, interested to know how many schools in Blaby District Council area have used Warning Zone or had road crew interaction or have bookings to do so this school year. And that ultimately creates a question to me as to how does this, and you've kind of just alluded to it with the VRN, Elaine. We have, you know, a plethora of agencies and charities and work programs and that are all operating in and around a similar space. Although I fully recognise that a lot of the stuff that Warning Zone do is utterly unique. And I'm just curious as to how dynamic or integrated with those other agencies you are, or indeed they are with you. So actually we're maxing out on what any of those education integration intervention opportunities are. So, you know, the very fact that my lead officer's asked this question says that she doesn't know what's happening with Warning Zone within her operating area. So I'm just curious, and therefore, is there an opportunity moving forward, Elaine, that we better align and better integrate, and therefore, you know, just max out on those intervention strategies? So back to you, Elaine. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, well, I haven't got the figures in front of me in terms of how many schools go to from Blaby use Warning Zone and road crew, but it will be a good number. I'll get that to you. I mean, in terms of opportunities to better align and integrate, that's why I'm here. And in terms of not knowing about Warning Zone, I mean, I don't know. It's been around for a long time, since 2006, and before that, it was Crime Beat, etc. You know, and it was, I think it started when Tony Blair asked the high sheriffs what they could do in terms of being useful for young people. And then they started Crime Beat, and then that sort of grew and grew and grew. And then we worked in partnership with the police, with the fire and rescue service, with the water board, and the transport police, etc., and the rail safety partnership. And so that's grown and grown and grown. And so now we are where we are. So yeah. So the person that asked the question, if they want to come and see Warning Zone, that'd be brilliant. And then they can find out, and then they can see how we can work with, if there are any opportunities to work with all other organisations. I mean, that's sort of what I've been trying to do since I joined, is to look at what's actually happening, what the actual issues are for children today, and make sure that we stay current and relevant. Now, what I've done is I've got Katie and Jamie from the police, from the child sexual exploitation and child criminal exploitation and substance misuse, you know, children and young people, and county lines, etc., to do workshops for all our volunteers, trustees and staff, to update them on what's happening now. And there was a lot of that which actually reiterated that, you know, what we're actually still doing and what we're doing now, because we're all sort of keeping updated. But now we're sort of going to be moving more into coercion, criminal coercion. So things such as county lines and sending of inappropriate images, etc., because that's getting younger. So yeah, so we're trying to sort of work in line with and coordinated with what everyone else is doing, and that's really why I'm here.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, can I just put a bit of clarity on? It's not that they don't know who Warning Zone is, Elaine. It's from what I've read here on this briefing note is they're not aware of what you're doing in their particular CSP area.
CSP?
Yeah, Community Safety Partnership.
Right, okay.
Services. So
yeah.
that was the bit about where is there an opportunity?
Right.
You've alluded to it, Elaine, about better integration across the services, so we're not duplicating or conflicting.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any danger of that. I mean, we haven't said, okay, well, in Blaby, this is what we're going to do, and and sort of not taking anything else into consideration. No, we don't do that. We're not. That's not how we work. So yeah. So there's no problem there.
Okay, thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is really welcome, and it's really nice to hear the engagement with this group, and obviously in line with the community safety partnerships. It's probably a question on a similar vein to Les's, and that is how do the schools get picked who were invited to, I couldn't see that in the presentation that I read. How do they get picked? And if there's a specific issue like, my name's Lee Harper-Davies, I'm the chair for CSP Community Safety and Partnership in Charnwood. And I just wondered how you decide where to go. And if there's this particular issue with young people in Safe for Charnwood or wherever, do you sort of organise your training around the specific issues? Are you guided by that?
Right, okay, well, what happens is that schools book their visits and they usually book straight after their visit, they book for the next year. So it's about our capacity. So we cover 80% because that's our capacity. We can't fit any more in. So it's kind of first come, first serve. But what we want to do is want to make sure we cover, or we have spaces for the city schools and schools with that have been identified, say, by the Prevent team, or any schools with, in areas with specific deprivation, etc. That's what one of our aims is at the moment. So that's kind of, and also in terms of the specific issues, what we do is we ask the schools to give us an overview of what the specific issues are for that school, and then we will sort of either focus on those or sort of ask questions around specific things depending on the on the experience of the children. But what I'm sort of thinking for the sort of future is that have more zones looking at more sort of that we can adapt to specific issues, and then the school can choose which zones to go to. So if we can only have time for 8 zones and we have 10 zones, they choose the most relevant to the children that they're working with at the time. That's what I'd like to do in the future.
Thank you. Can I come back on that as well, if I may?
Yeah.
Do you know whether you've actually worked with any schools in Charnwood?
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've worked with schools the whole of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland.
Lovely. Well, that's a great job, and I think prevention is much better than cure.
Yes, but it's harder. It's so much harder to have evidence. But yeah,
absolutely. And I think if we can stop, particularly from the criminality point of view, we can stop them starting to dabble, and then they don't go on to more seriousness in crime. So I really welcome your programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you.
Malaise.
Thank you very much. I just can't speak too highly of Warning Zone. I went round a couple of years ago, and it is the most brilliant organisation. I rather enjoyed the "Who am I" trick, where you suddenly found the person you were talking to wasn't the person you were talking to. What I want to know really is, how can the CSPs help you? Could I bring a small delegation of officers to show them the wonderful work that you're doing? And if we have a difficult child, can we refer them to you?
Yeah, I mean, we at the moment we've been taking 1 or 2 cases. I mean, we couldn't do absolutely loads. But if there's something that we think that we can do that isn't above and beyond our capability, then we're more than happy to. And that, we feel that having, a sort of a deep impact on one child or one family is so important.
Thank you very much. And basically, is there anything you want from the CSPs? And I would love my officers to know more about what you do, really.
Yeah, it's just sort of keeping us making sure that we are current and appropriate and relevant going forward. Looking at what we can address appropriately at warning zone for 10 and 11-year-olds, and also out in the secondary schools for online exploitation and radicalisation, and then also volunteers. We use 75. At the moment, we've got 75 volunteers that take the groups around, interact with the groups and lead the groups, and we need more volunteers. So for example, if they're within your organisations, if you have like a corporate volunteering scheme or a staff development scheme, this is just brilliant. Or if there's in the HR department somebody who deals with people who are coming to retirement, this is a brilliant, sort of extra thing to do if you're going to retire. So we need volunteers, and we have volunteers that were in the fire service, that were teachers, but also we've got really young volunteers who are at university doing criminology, education, all kinds of things. And parents, got lots of people who wanted to volunteer who were parents because they wanted to know, they wanted to be on the cutting edge of keeping their children and all their friends safe as well.
But if we wanted to bring a small group of professionals, could we just contact you direct and say?
Absolutely, yeah, brilliant, absolutely, we'd really welcome that.
Thank you very much. And it's an organisation, yeah.
Thanks, Malaise. And I think if my memory serves you right, you are actually a charity, aren't you, at Warning Zone? So funding's an issue for you. So any help and support that you can get is really important. I think there's a good comment in the comments box from Paul from Northwest Leicestershire that instead of you keeping them informed, they take their issues to you. So I think that's probably a message for the CSPs, is to for them to approach you with what's going on in their local areas might be a good way forward. Carly.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Elaine. My name's Carly. I'm the Service Manager for the Youth and Justice Service at the County Council. And I just really want to wax lyrical about Warning Zone, because over the years we've had such an amazing relationship with you in terms of co-developing some of the areas, using it for antisocial behaviour. But we've tended to move away from that, really, because we're dealing much more prevalence with 16 and 17-year-olds and those that are transitioning over into adult services, so that kind of the relationship, although it's still there, isn't perhaps as strong as it would have been because of the change of cohort. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for a conversation. I can bring my service manager colleague in, Donna Smalley, around child criminal exploitation. I know she's worked with Warning Zone quite a lot around what some of the key themes are that we're seeing in that cohort of 16 and 17-year-olds that we can track back into some of the potentials. Mrs. Taylor made a really good point about the prevalence of domestic abuse in both our children being perpetrated and the young adults perpetrating, but also witnessing it. So I do wonder if the opportunity to have a conversation around a healthy relationship, so both intimate relationships and family relationships, would be a real good zone to consider, because in terms of the referrals that then come into us at the County Council, it's a primary feature of that. So I don't know if you want to have a conversation outside of here, but great work, and I just think there's probably an opportunity to do some learning from the cohorts that we're working with.
That'd be brilliant, Carly. Yeah, because then also if we can get, so if there are any particular 17-year-olds who you think would be good at, we can they can tell their story, and then it's all about the tracking back, and then we want to get a group of people who are really sort of into this, looking at tracking back to like what's actually happened to women and men, and then sort of tracking it back and looking at what could we have done at 10 and 11, what could we have done at 14, 15, 16?
And absolutely, I think when we are tracking back a cohort of our children that have been not in education trained, I say children, we refer to anyone under 18 as a child, so some of them will be coming to their 18th birthday. but kind of behaviour in school classrooms and the response around education is a real factor that then links to child criminal exploitation and offending as well. So there's a lot of kind of, we talk about ACEs, but there's a lot I think that we can do on a practical level that starts to kind of give those slow primed messages in those zones, but also to schools as part of the road shows as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, great, fantastic.
Okay, I've got no one else showing, Elaine, for questions. So Rachel, just at the last minute.
Sorry, I thought I'd put my hand up already and then I realised I hadn't. I do apologise. Yeah, Elaine, when I was reading this last night, I just thought how fantastic. And I don't live in Leicestershire, so my son doesn't access this, and I felt a little bit disappointed by that because it sounds amazing. And I've just been thinking while everyone was talking, so you talked about links to the Violence Reduction Network and forums that kind of oversee our approach to child criminal exploitation. I just wondered if you'd got links with the local Safeguarding Children's Partnership Board, because I was just thinking in the perspective of, you know, keeping up to date on what's happening for children. And I know that at the Safeguarding Partnership Board, they actually do have children who attend. They've got a section where children attend. And I was just thinking, I don't sit on the Safeguarding Children's Partnership Board. I go to the adult, but colleagues that I work with do. And I just wondered if there's maybe some links that could be made there just to get some of that additional intelligence around what, you know, is going on for children across LLR. Yeah. And whether I could have whether it'd be worth me having a conversation with my designate colleague for children's safeguarding and make some links there.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I'm not on that board, but I'd really love to have the experience of seeing what happens, to see where we can learn and fit in. That'd be brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
The designate nurse for children's safeguarding is Jan Harrison, and we also work. And we've also got designated nurse for looked after children, and we work closely with the SEND designate. So I think there's potentially a lot of links that could be made there to help you with your intelligence around keeping kind of up to date, relevant, etc. So I'll have a conversation with Jan and I'll get your details and we'll see how we best link you in.
Because I mean, historically there might have been some links, but since I came in January 2020, and obviously there's been lockdown, and so I'm kind of relearning some of the stuff as well, and also trying to make sure that, you know, we're looking to the future as well. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, no more questions, Jane. So just want to say thank you, Elaine, for coming. I think it's really been an eye-opener for us and also for you as well to draw some of those links. So I think it'd be good if you want to check in with Ewan and maybe come back. I don't know whether we want a yearly basis or 6-month basis, just to keep up to date and keep connected with you and you with us as well. But if CSPs can feed into you and all those other links that you've collected today, I think that'd be really useful just to keep checking in with you to make sure we're all working together. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming. Good to meet you. And hopefully I'll see you in person soon for a visit.
Yeah,
it'd be really good to set one up.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 9, the LSCSB performance update Q1. Rick, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The report outlines Q1 performance across a range of indicators. The data underpinning it is contained in the online performance dashboard, and there's a link in the report. I've had some feedback that the report doesn't necessarily reflect the current experience of crime patterns of some localities, and I've got some sympathy with that particular view. But this report is intended to highlight, it's not intended to highlight individual district performance, but reflect broad county-wide trends across specific areas, localised data, which can be viewed via the link that's within the report. Getting back to the report, in summary, the Q1 report very much continues the direction of travel for the KPIs shown over the previous 3 quarters. By way of headline, crime in most categories has gone down, and that's reflected in the overall crime indicator. This, though, is starting to level off. Violence with injury hasn't followed the overall crime trend, and that still is coming up as an issue. Domestic violence with injury rates are a subset of the violence with injury, and that is on the increase as well, albeit quite slowly in actual fact at the moment. ASB overall is on a downward trend, but some localities have seen notable increases. Going into the detail across each of the KPIs, crime at a county-wide level, burglary, both residential and commercial, is on trend. Vehicle crime, likewise, has shown a sustained drop. Violence with injuries, I've already said, continues to rise, and it's risen for the last 8 quarters. Trend to the actual fact. Then reducing offending and re-offending. The data for the 2 main KPIs in this performance area is updated intermittently, but it has been updated since the last report. Following sustained positive results, the data in relation to both of these KPIs has shown first signs of stabilising, but the end of year data for both do continue a positive downward. Is 88 in 2020-21 compared to 111 the previous year, and likewise the rate of reoffending by young offenders is better than the previous year, albeit only marginally. Moving on to repeat victimisation, the MARAC repeat referral rate is at 46%, which is down from 51% in the previous quarter. That is moving more towards the Safe Lives recommended threshold of 40%. UAVA referrals have remained relatively stable over the last 6 quarters, are starting to slowly rise. There are some additional indicators within the report. Non-violence with injury rate, which is risen for the last 5 quarters in actual fact. Moving on to ASB, the survey data measuring public confidence has recovered, both the community-based survey questions performing better than last year. The ASB reported to the police is categorised as personal, nuisance and environmental, and all 3 have stabilised, with a large drop in environmental ASB, which coincides with the opening of waste management sites. So that's not particularly a surprise, I guess. In relation to the report on Sentinel, looking at it county-wide, is showing a downtrend, albeit that downward trend is relatively small now. But it's noted that, as I've already said, that there are some notable increases in some localities, in 3 localities in actual fact. And the final area that we look at, hate crime, the overall number of hate crimes reported has increased year on year, which is positive in relation to the report. So obviously increasing reporting is a priority. That is basically a skip through the report itself, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Rick. You sound a bit robotic this morning, but I think we got the gist of the report. With the questions just that bit at the beginning, were you saying this report doesn't reflect what's happening in districts? Is that feedback you've got from CSPs? Is that what you were saying?
It is. I mean, I'll present the report at the senior officer group, and there's comment made, and I have some sympathy with the view that the report shows a general downward trend in crime, and certainly some localities aren't seeing that. And so the trend is it's a downward trend county-wide, but certainly there are 3 localities that are seeing substantial increases in ASB. Yeah. So from that point of view, it's not representative of what's happening within a particular locality.
Okay, but I'm not sure how many people click on the link that you send, and I hope people do look at it, because the breakdown for there and the districts and the overall, you can see all the trends for everywhere, can't you? So I do spend some time looking through that dashboard, so I hope other members do before they make comment, to ensure that, you know, the comments are relevant to what they're seeing. So I'll go to questions first. So Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Just picking up on the domestic abuse, I was talking to a couple of reps from the Living Without Abuse charity at the weekend, and they're saying that they're overwhelmed, and there's been a very significant spike in recent months, which doesn't seem to be in keeping with the figures. Do you think we're seeing underreporting still?
That's absolutely a possibility. The figures are the reported figures. Of course, there could be underlying issues that we're not aware of, but certainly I can look at that data to ensure that it is accurate. But underreporting for domestic abuse has been an ongoing issue.
Okay, Liz.
Get back to right. Thanks, Chair. Rick, it's just an observation because I do look at the Tableau report. Could you just ask the statisticians who are producing it to just check on some of the scaling they're using? And in particular, I'm just looking at rate of reoffending by adults, and on first glance, the graph is going zoom, and it almost suggests it's virtually nil, but actually it's the scaling on the graph. It's actually only gone down by 10, but the way the graph's been scaled, it makes it look as though it's gone from a fairly high to virtually no. So it just needs a bit tweaking on the scaling, please, Rick. But it's a really useful report, actually, that one. So yeah, good stuff. Thanks. That's what it was, Deb. Thank you.
Okay. How often is this dashboard updated? So if I went and clicked on it in 2 weeks' time, would it have the updated figure, or is it just done per quarter?
Yeah, it's updated, but I can approach the statisticians to see if we can do something about that.
And how often is it updated, Rick?
Quarterly. So
it's just quarter. This will, yeah. If I click on this link, it will stay the same for the next quarter then, yeah? Okay. Yeah,
the link is it's specific to that particular dashboard. So if you look through previous reports, it will link to previous dashboards. But I'll speak to the statisticians and see if there's anything we can do to make that update more frequent.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, any other questions for Rick? Okay, thanks, Rick.
Deb, can I just make one other observation? It follows Councillor Woodman's comment. As I understand it, Rick, I'm with Councillor Woodman. Domestic abuse is definitely got some issues around it, and indeed, I was at a parish council meeting last night with police in attendance. You know, they were quite confident that domestic abuse is a challenge at the moment. So, and I think we see this here and there in the different forums that most of us sit in, is that the stats don't always agree with the next set of stats from a different source. And it would be really handy if we could just have one set of stats that was common and you know, accurate, dare I say, and use the same reporting methodology. But that's a much bigger question, Rick. But you know, it's you've got next week if you can sort that all out for us.
I think you're in dream mode, Les. I don't think that's ever going to happen in our lifetime. So, but keep asking.
Oh, I will, trust me.
Okay, on to item 10. So this is being Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government Domestic and Sexual Violence Abuse Service Funding Update, and this is done by Lily. I don't think Lily's joined us before, so if you want to introduce yourself, Lily.
Hi, thank you, Chair. So my name's Lily. I work in public health as a Healthy Homes Officer. So I'm heavily working on the DA Acton funding work with Gurjit Samarai and also with Deborah Cunningham at the moment. So Gurjit's asked that I can present an update to you guys today based on the DA Acton funding work that we're undertaking at the moment. So I'm just going to pull up my document just so I don't miss anything off. So following a DA Acton funding meeting that we held a few months ago, we were speaking to local authority departments and also charitable organisations in regards to the gaps that they have identified in service. So as part of that, we picked up on a tiered mental health approach for children and young people, and also a tiered mental health approach for adults. We are looking at going out to procure and tender services to meet the needs of those populations. We've also identified a gap in accommodation, but dispersed accommodation. So currently, accommodation that's out there for domestic abuse victims at present is not suitable for people with physical disabilities, people that need living carers, and so on and so forth. So we're going down the dispersed accommodation model, which there's a big document from Women's Aid based on the benefits of that way of working moving forward. Not only does it support victims of domestic abuse with physical disabilities that can't access communal living, it's also a further opportunity for victims with complex issues to be housed safely in independent accommodation to prevent the risks around trauma bonding and so on and so forth. So we are going out to procure for self-contained units or dispersed accommodation. There's also, we're also procuring a service for victims of domestic abuse across the county that have substance misuse issues. So as part of that, we are looking to direct award turning point for a county-wide substance misuse stroke domestic abuse specialist. So that's being undertaken at the moment in terms of like writing PIDs and so on and so forth. With how the tendering processes are at the minute, with everything up for tender, we're just going to have to iron out some difficulties that may put into place if we was to direct award the current service providers. So that's conversations that we're ongoing with. We've also recruited a DA Act officer in community safety that will be starting over the next few weeks. This is exciting. It is a really exciting opportunity. She's experienced in like the grassroots, so she's got 10 years of experience in domestic and sexual violence, worked on the ground, so is fully aware of gaps in service provisions and what is needed to create a positive service that fits the needs of all those under the Equality Act. In terms of the PIDs, we're writing the PIDs for accommodation, for tiered mental health support, and so on and so forth. There's current conversations with public health and with Gurjit Samurai around a healthy schools offer. So at the moment, there's obviously a gap in schools around educating children and young people on the issues around domestic abuse. What is a healthy relationship? There was obviously that report that had come out from Ofsted about the sexual violence in schools. So as part of that, we are looking to procure a service that can provide training to teachers to deliver RSHE lessons based on healthy relationships, so children and young people can gain a better understanding of what a healthy relationship is. And the idea of that is as a preventative tool. So if we can educate them from a young age, then the likelihood is it will prevent risk of harm further on down the line. So there's talks about that and whether we can use the DA Act and funding money from the MHCLG to fund that. If not, we'll be looking to fund that from a public health point of view. There's authentic voice work that's ongoing at the moment. There's a lot of issues with engaging the community with this piece of work. I myself have attended Women's Aid's refuges across the county to try and get service users to come forward and work with me on this project. So as part of the local partnership board requirements, we need to get authentic voice in, we need to get survivor voice in on the partnership. And the way that we're looking to approach that is to develop focus groups across the county with survivors of domestic abuse. And then either myself or a survivor that would like to do that will then present that to the local partnership board. And in essence, work with the local partnership board to develop a service that's fit for all, with the authentic voice at the heart and start of the issues. We are currently looking at a domestic abuse strategy. we are expected to publish that in draft by the 26th of October. Myself and Gadget and Deborah will be working on that over the next week or two to try and get some form of organisation behind that, I guess. So that's another thing that we're looking to do, and that's because the regulations are now stating under section 57 that a relevant local authority must publish a draft of the strategy at least 10 weeks before the date on which the authority intends to publish it. And our deadline to publish that is the 5th of January, which would mean we'd need the draft by the 26th of October. Just double checking I'm not missing anything off. We are looking at a housing reciprocal model or scheme, which means that people with social tenancies who are at risk of serious harm can then access a social tenancy in a different borough and in essence remain safe. So the purpose of that scheme is to allow survivors of violence, abuse or exploitation to move to safety without sacrificing their social tenancies. So whilst this work only covers those that have social tenancies, this model would offer a third option for survivors to move safely to another district. And the scheme aims to cover a variety of vulnerable categories. So that's domestic violence and abuse, sexual violence and exploitation, which would include prostitution and trafficking, so-called honour-based violence, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, stalking, hate crime and serious youth violence. And I think that's it in terms of our updates at the moment. Any questions?
So it sounds like you're on schedule to hit your dates, so fingers crossed for that. And just a couple of points from me. I know this is a really difficult group to get engaged, isn't it? The service users and the victims and stuff like that. So anything we can do within our localities to gather some data for you as to what's needed, I think will be really helpful to feed into you. And just the bit about moving between districts, is that just within LLR, or can we move people? Have we got that agreement with our areas around our borders as such, or is that just within LLR?
So at the moment, we're looking at it across Leicestershire and Rutland. The city was going to join, but unfortunately, I've not yet had feedback as to whether or not they're going to be joining it. So at the minute, how it's looking from the Chief Housing Officers Group is that it will be Leicestershire and Rutland as a pilot for a year. If that is successful, then there will be opening options to engage with border authorities, so Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, so on and so forth, to open it up wider. There is talks across the East Midlands Regional Group at the minute about a similar process and how we can work together. And there's also talks nationally on it as well, because it's about preventing that postcode lottery issue of support, isn't it? And ultimately offering the same service to all. So it's certainly conversations that we'll be having in the future, but in order to get other people engaged, we need to get it right here first. So that's a bit of work that I'll be working with Hinkley and Bosworth and Blaby on that initially, because whilst I know how a reciprocal model works, there's different house allocations policies across all of the districts. So there's a lot of difficulties that we're going to have to try and iron out in order to make it successful.
Yeah, some districts don't have their own housing stock as well, so that makes it more difficult. That's a shame about the city not responding, because that would be good if we could get it across LLR. But I know how difficult it is to get that work done. Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, some excellent initiatives there. So it's a great update. Thanks, Lily. Also on that point, I know in Northwest we border about 5 different districts in 4 different counties. So getting that cross border will be quite a big thing for us. It was only a small thing I was going to pick up on when you say about the educating children on healthy relationships. What sort of age group are you aiming at?
So, it's a bit of a difficult one at the moment. So we've spoken to organisations that can deliver that locally, and it's about targeting all school age. So going into primary school settings and also secondary settings. So it's primarily, initially, it'd be primary and secondary settings. If that's successful, then obviously there's the opportunity to go into colleges and so on and so forth, and running something similar there. But in terms of the packages that are ready at the minute, it's tailored to those age groups. So that would be our first point of call.
I presume you tailor it differently to primary to secondary.
Yeah. Most definitely, yeah. It's all tailored depending on age needs and language and so on and so forth. So it's very specific to that age range, I guess.
Yeah. What would be the youngest age that you'd?
In terms of the youngest age, you'd probably be looking at foundation age. In terms of healthy tots, that would be more working with parents and carers. So whether that's putting webinars on about understanding the effects that can have on children, similar to that of the Solihull approach. So how they present their work in terms of like substance misusing, mental health and so on and so forth, and how that affects the unborn baby. So that first 1001 days would be the work that would go into the healthy tot side. And then with the primary school settings, it's more about asking the questions to the young people. So what is a healthy relationship? So what does that look like? And making sure that your language is appropriate, I guess, if that answered your question. If not,
yeah, no, that's great, thanks.
Thank you.
I think, Lily, for us, I think we're learning more and more, aren't we, about the effect of domestic abuse and unhealthy relationships that they have on children, how they progress into adulthood with those ideas, don't they, and how it just snowballs from there. So I think it's really important that we engage as much as we can with the younger generations to ensure they're aware of these issues. Elaine.
Oh yeah, hi Lily. Just I don't know if you heard what I was saying earlier, but it'd be really useful for us to see if there's anything that we can do, or sort of reiterate, or just specific things that we can integrate into our messages at Warning Zone in terms of healthy relationships. Sort of start from where you are and then see what would be appropriate for us.
That'd be great. Sorry, I missed that part. I didn't come in until 1:45. But yeah, I'm more than happy to have a conversation out of here if you'd like as well. And as much promotion as possible, I guess, to try and get as many people on board would be the best way for us all, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think all of you are within your areas of CSPs are aware of what happens in your locality and what support's out there for victims of domestic abuse. And if we can get some engagement from them, some feedback from them about what the service should look like and what their needs are, I think that would really help us to make sure we get this right for all our residents. So if you do have any information, please feed that back to Lily. Look, lovely to meet you. Thanks so much for coming, Lily.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Okay.
Bye. On
to item 11, probation update. Rick, are you taking us through this?
Yes, I am, Chair. As a reminder, Bob Bean has come along to the last two boards and given updates regarding the progress being made to reunify probation. Bob was unable to make today, but asked me to present a very short report to supplement his previous updates. His report outlines a challenging year with high caseloads impacted by staff shortages due to COVID-19. Nonetheless, unification formally commenced from the 26th of this year, so it has started. The next steps, not surprisingly, for 2021 and the rest of next year will be to focus on reunification of the CRCs and NPS. Bob's very briefly mentioned in his report some of the challenges ahead in relation to that. But of particular interest to the board will be points 4 and 5 within his report. The first thing that he mentions is that because of the process of reunification, the current partnership working accepted, the reunification will place considerable pressures on the NPS and their capacity to engage in new partnership working certainly for the next 6 to 9 months. So that's something to be borne in mind. And if there are any requests, that they will be taken on a case-by-case basis by probation. As if there wasn't enough going on, a major refit of the Leicester City office, which covers the county as well, or certainly parts of the county, is to commence in November and will finish in March of next year. And the probation will be moving over to temporary accommodation at Friar Lane, which is the ex-CRC office. And the final point that he makes is an update in relation to work as a permanent site for probation, and that work's still ongoing in relation to the update that Bob wanted to give to the board.
Thanks, Rick. I think it's been a pretty difficult time for them since June, hasn't it, trying to work this through. I don't know if partners have had any experience of how it's working on the ground with the new integration, or if anyone's got any feedback we could pass over to how it's working. Nothing. Okay.
Sorry, I was just clicking the on mic. Yeah, we had our rep come to the CSP who gave us an update. And while it's been extremely challenging, it seems from our perspective that they are delivering still. The only area of weakness that still is to be resolved is around the community payback scheme. So we did ask a question around that, and they said they're looking into that soon. So we'll start getting new referrals into community payback.
Okay, thank you. Okay, fingers crossed for them that they iron out all their issues, and we'll hopefully see Bob back at our next meeting. Thanks for that, Rick. Okay, on to item 12, the Glenparva prison. Is Nick with us, or is someone else? Can't see him in the list. Ewan, do you know if anyone else is it?
If you just give a second, I'll bring him in.
Okay, thank you. There he is. Hi, Nick. Welcome.
Hi, morning, everyone. How slick was that? Well done, Ewan. Thank you.
Okay, we're over to you, Nick.
Oh, right. Brilliant stuff. Excellent. Yeah, so give you an update where we are with construction and the operator competition for the prison. You'll have seen in your agenda pack the newsletter that went out to the local community. Just some of the key issues to pick up there for you. There's been significant construction progress. I think the weather has really helped us there. I think this year so far we've only had 2 days delay due to poor weather. So significant work ongoing. The piling and the earthworks are now complete on site. So all the house blocks and all the buildings are now rising out of the grounds. The Secretary of State paid a visit to site recently. Previous Secretary of State, we've got a new one now in Mr. Dominic Raab, but he paid a visit to site with the local MP, Alberto Costa. A really positive meeting and a good opportunity for us to talk about our programme of construction across all the prisons we're building, but particularly what we're doing at Glenparva. 125 new jobs have now been created on site from Lend-Lease through their construction and through their subcontractors. And £71.5 million has now been spent with local businesses within 50 miles of the prison. So that's part of the whole targets that we set within the contract, the number of people they have to employ, the number of training days that they have to give, the number of upskilling days. But they're well on target to achieve that, and that's just after 10 months. And I think that's about 68% of the target achieved already within 10 months. But yeah, 71.5 million that's gone back into local SMEs. The year 11 from Blaby District Schools, there's 4 visits being lined up for them to come and look at construction and how construction will work. And then also next week on the 28th of September, also in the newsletter, Crown House, who are one of the biggest subcontractors for the site. Crown House are responsible for all the mechanical and electrical and plant installation that goes on site. So anything gas, electric, water is all down to Crown House. They are doing a Meet the Buyer event on the 28th of September next week to promote local contract opportunities. So that's been published for quite a while. They want local business to come and meet them and see whether they can get involved in being part of the supply chain to Crown House. Crown House are the ones that did 5 wells at Wellingborough as well, and they're more than likely to have a contract. They're a local company based in the West Midlands near Wolverhampton, and they have, I think, probably one of the most significant portions of the prison construction budget after the concrete piling, the concrete panelling. So a lot going on, but it is really positive. If anyone has happened to have been on there, you'll see that Lendlease have now put up a large temporary office block, which is 4 floors. On the top floor, that half of that floor is a viewing deck to see oversight. We've said it before, and absolutely we're open. If members of this board want to come and have a look at the site, we can get you on, we can get you up there and see the scale of what is actually going on. But really positive news from construction, everything on target for completion January 2023. And then in relation to the competition to who will operate the prison, we are heading towards the final stages now. All the evaluations have taken place. I'm responsible for evaluating the bidders' mobilisation aspect. So they tell us how they will mobilise the prison, the resourcing they will use, how they will recruit prison custody officers, etc. So I'm responsible for the evaluation and moderation of that element of the bid. But we are on track for the 4 bidders, which are Sodexo, Serco, G4S and MTC. All those bids are being evaluated, and I note that the next meeting of this board is the 10th of December, and it is possible, if we don't have any challenges and standstill, 14-day standstill goes well, that I may be in a position in December to advise you of who the prison operator will be. It is around the 10th of December, maybe a little bit before, that we will have a conclusion, so that might be fairly tight. If it is after that date, what I will do, I'll share it with Rick so he can share with you the outcomes of that, so you know who the operator of the site will be. And then from there, once we know who the operator is, formal mobilisation contract award will start round about January 22, so next January, which is at the point where I oversee whoever that company is mobilising, and then I massively encourage them to engage with the local community, local councils, etc., to make sure they can deliver me a full service. So far things are going really, really well in respect of construction and the operator competition.
Thanks, Nick. And you actually look like you're sat on the building site there, so great background.
So that is actually Glenparva. If you look at, so this is on Glenparva. So what the constructors have to do, they have to build 2 cells, and we have to then go and say that is exactly what we want. So they are finished cells, painting, furniture, everything. So if you came on site, you'd see that. So they have to build as what we told them to build. Then we go and look at it and say, can you change it? So we call them mock-up cells, but they've decided to build a hangar that you can put an aeroplane in for some reason around it.
Excellent. Oh, I'd love to come. I've never been in a cell. I hope I never do, but no, I'd love to come and have a visit there. So yeah, let's try and arrange some visits now we're back out of COVID. So thanks for the update. Really good to see the school engaging as well with with the kids coming around to have a look, and you know, they might get an interest in the prison service, or they might get an interest in construction. So really good to get them involved. No doubt, Les. Yes, I thought you'd have your hand up, Les. Yes, no.
Yeah, I will. So I know Nick's a slightly different headspace. How are we doing on Meet the Buy-in next week, Nick? How many people have we got registered now?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest, because that's Raj's world. So Raj is normally on here. But what I will do, Les, I will contact Lendlease and Crown House after this call. I'll send Rick an email, and then Rick can share that with you. So I'll find the numbers for you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I think for members of this panel, the willingness and the aspiration of the whole team down there at Glenparva and Lendlease and Crown Estates and everybody actually supporting our local business community, not just our residential population, but the local business community, and getting them involved in actually helping both come out of an economic recession, clearly post-pandemic, but actually start introducing new kids onto the apprenticeship program. So it's a hugely valuable project. And actually don't make the cells too posh, Nick, otherwise some of the kids might think, hey, this is where I want to be. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you. If we can, Ewan, can you pick that up about, see if we can arrange a visit? I don't know if it's better, Nick, if we come as a group rather than keep coming individually. So members of this panel want to come.
if you want to come as a group, or there's a boardroom on site if you want to do a meeting from there. How many's on the call? About 20, 25. The boardroom can hold about 20 with dial-in facilities. So
Okay.
more than happy to arrange for you. If you drop me an email just showing your interest to do that, I'll get Raj to pick that up, who leads on the construction site. But I know she's really keen to get you guys on site to have a look. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Let me know
All
which
right.
meeting you want to do it for, and I'll pick that up.
Okay, Ewan, can I leave that with you to liaise and get a date and just get a visit set up for people that are interested in visiting? That'd be brilliant. Okay, any other questions for Nick from anyone? Okay, thanks, Nick. Thanks for dropping in. Hopefully see you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, on to item 13. Any other business? Anything from anyone else? Okay, on to item 14. Dates of future meetings. The next meeting, as just said, Friday the 10th at 10 AM. I don't know if anyone's interested in having a meeting at a prison, but I'll leave that to you and to sort out whether we have a meeting there or whether we stay online. Kevin.
Yes, thank you. I just missed the hand up before we moved on to the next item, but it's any other business. Perhaps I could share with you or ask whether or not it'd be worth asking a school representative, associated head teachers or something like that, to attend a meeting to discuss the outcomes of. There's a lot of agencies out there that want to get into schools and do this, that, and the other. We've heard it today where there's several agencies that are dealing with schools. As a retired chairman of an academy, I know there's a lot of pull on the schools to go in and do whatever the goodness of people want to do. But we've not heard yet from the associations of head teachers or any other to find out what the impact that is on schools and how easy it is to get into it, and what support will they give us or share with their colleagues to help us move into the schools and carry out the work that we need to do. I'll just share that with you. The other one is perhaps at a future date we can look at, we'll get somebody, invite somebody in about, it's a safeguarding issue about modern slavery. The reason I asked for that is because there's a slight confusion about how to deal with it. We've dealt with it here quite severely, so we've experienced a real life case, but we've also experienced some of the weaknesses within the system that we had to overcome to safeguard a family and their children. We've done it, it's all done, but it was a bit of an headache to deal with it. So I wondered whether or not we could have somebody that might give us the lowdown on modern slavery, how it works, what to look for, things like physical appearance, isolation, and so on. That would be very helpful, so that we can get the message out there to people that it's happening. Don't think it's not happening, it is happening. We've learned from it, from our experiences here today. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I think there's limits on who we can invite to this meeting, but I'll check with Ewan. But I suppose my problem with schools is there's primary, there's secondary, there's local authority, there's church schools, there's academies. So if you invite one, you've got to invite them all. So I don't look. Would that be sensible to look at school rep or not? Or is there another way of doing it? Ewan.
I'm not sure. Perhaps we'll think about it after the meeting.
Yeah, okay. We'll take that back, Kevin, and maybe an item on modern slavery. We could get someone to present for us future agenda item for modern slavery to give us an overview on what happens within LLR. So I'll leave that with Rick to have a look how we go with that. Malaise, I think you were next.
Yeah, just quickly, dates of next meeting. I was just trying to put them in my diary. 18th of March and 17th of March.
Yeah, sorry, there's a typo there. It should be 18th of March and 17th of June, 2020.
17th of June. Great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Malaise. Well spotted. Les.
Thanks, Chair. I was just picking up on Councillor Lloyd's point. If I may be so presumptuous, if Rick or anybody can get hold of this doing money, I would humbly suggest see that video, see that docudrama first, because it will really position your thinking. And then picking up on Councillor Lloyd's comment, actually where or what we could do. So just a suggestion. I know I'm a stuck, broken, scratch record with this one, but when you've seen that docudrama, you'll understand why. So thank you, Deb.
Have you got a copy, Les?
No, I've seen it. I don't think. Well, I will watch it again. I just think anybody who's involved in any element of local authority, police authority, sex trafficking, child sexual exploitation, modern day slavery, it's kind of all encapsulated in that, and it's a true story. That's what really rams it home. It is an absolutely true story, and you just need to see how the sex traffickers manipulate the system to get the advantage, and therefore keep the young lasses in a position of slavery, I guess. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Rick's just put a message in there about DI Gary B heads up the modern slavery, human trafficking police. So yeah, perhaps we'll ask him to see what he can do and get a presentation at a future meeting for us, if that's of interest to the group. Like I said, 10th of December is the next meeting at 10 o'clock, location to be decided. I don't know if there's any thoughts yet about where we might meet again in person, but we'll keep you updated with that. Okay, we finished early, got half an hour of your life back for today. So thank you very much for all your input, and hope you see you all soon. Take care. Bye.